I did it. I finally hit level 60 on my warrior while doing the hardcore challenge. And today I thought I'd summarise the journey, what things I did that are probably going to be conforming to convention, and what things I did that might be a little bit different. And I thought I'd also have a look at what we're going to be doing going forward and maybe ask you guys what you'd like to see as well. So let's dive into it. So, first up, what things did we do? So, we hit level 60, we didn't die, and we did this while also hitting all of our professions to 300, that is engineering, mining, cooking, fishing, and first aid along the way, as well as doing every single dungeon while leveling up to BRD. With technically BRD we only did about half of because we had to go, but other than that we did every single dungeon along the way. And we did all of this in about 213 hours, so by no means was this a speed run. This was about double the time, if I'm remembering correctly, as to what you need to do in order to get the speedrun achievement in the add-on, meaning that we really took our time. And that is going to be the biggest tip I can give to anybody that is hoping to get to level 60 on a warrior in hardcore. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm sure plenty of skilled players, maybe even yourselves watching this, would be able to do it quicker. I'm pretty confident I can do it quicker, but I definitely couldn't do it quicker while remaining the same degree of safety. I was not prepared to die on this character, so I made sure that I didn't. While leveling, I did primarily quest, but I did, like I say, do every dungeon. And whenever I found myself at a point where there was the potential for death while questing, I simply just would skip quests, come back later, and I would be more than willing to go and do a considerable grind along the way. There are many advantages to doing this. Not only is it generally going to be safer, but it's almost always going to be quicker as well. When I found myself at a level that had a good grinding location of mobs that were green to me, but only just green to me, I found myself able to kill mobs with a very high consistency, going from mob to mob with practically no downtime, which is saying something as a warrior, because grinding on yellow mobs, you will find that you are having to trink or bandage between pretty much every mob, maybe every two mobs, and that's going to prove to make it a very slow endeavour. If you do fight mobs that are green to you, and you have a talent build that is designed around grinding, you are generally going to be able to do much better. And at certain points, I was able to get myself to 10, 15 mobs between actually sitting down to recover my health, which meant that I was able to grind mobs endlessly and produce an experience per hour similar to or better than what I would have achieved while questing. Two things that allowed me to do this are going to be the gear I had and the talents that I had as well. Now, we'll talk about gear first because that's a little bit more straightforward. When you are grinding and when you are doing every single dungeon, you are going to find that gear doesn't prove to be as difficult as if you were just questing. You're going to get a lot more mobs that drop things for you, that you're going to obviously inevitably have more things be good for you that drop. And by doing all of the dungeons, you're also going to get yourself some really powerful loot along the way as well. And doing every single dungeon just improves your chances of getting something useful. The vast majority of the time, I was wearing gear all the way while leveling that was from a dungeon and only replacing it when I got something else from a dungeon, with the odd quest reward here and there. The quest rewards I found myself using the majority of the time were actually from the dungeon quests, so you could count that as dungeon loot, in which case I was pretty much exclusively wearing dungeon loot the entire way up the levels. In order to get these dungeons as a warrior, I did find myself having to tank, because even if you are unwilling to tank and you're willing to put the extra time and effort into finding a group, the overwhelming majority of groups are going to have a warrior tank, especially if you're horde, because obviously paladins then become a non-option, so the only other tank a group can have is a druid, and they are very much few and far between, being the least represented class in the hardcore challenge. This means that every group will already have a warrior as their tank, and the majority of warriors will not want another warrior in the group to take their loot. This basically means that you're most likely going to find yourself either tanking or not doing the dungeon. Even if you are willing to get yourself a group as a warrior and you're not tanking, and there is a warrior tank who's willing to take you, even in that best case scenario, you're still going to be splitting the loot 50-50, which is not ideal. So I would definitely say that you would probably want to get yourself in a position where you're comfortable tanking whatever you need to do in order to be able to be willing to do that. That is something that I would recommend. One thing that leads into this is talent build and talent choices. And this is something that I'm going to touch on a little bit more deeply because this is something that I did a little bit unusually. Now, in the footage that you're watching, I am Fury, and I went Fury at about level 50, and it's a fairly conventional build. Similarly, when I started out, I was Arms, and up until about level 30, my Arms build was fairly conventional as well, so I will be skipping those out. But up on the screen for you now, I will be putting up something that represents the build that I was using in that sort of 30 to 50 period that is slightly less conventional. Most notably, you'll see that I went into Arms, but only went down as low as getting sweeping strikes before then moving over into the Fury tree. This means that I never actually picked up Mortal Strike, and this was an intentional choice. I realized there was a lot of value to get over in the Fury tree, and I wanted to rush through into those better talents over there. And I felt that Mortal Strike, in all honesty, while questing, especially if you're questing like me, killing majoritarily green mobs, was going to prove to just be quite wasteful. It's quite an expensive rage cost on the ability, and by the time I generated enough rage to be able to use it, a mob was going to pretty much already be dead, so the overkill potential was absolutely huge. This meant that if I was leveling in the manner that I like to level, this ability was actually going to prove to be more of a hindrance than a help, and that is why I elected to move over and do something slightly less conventional. This is also something that you'll probably want to go to consider for yourself, as building a talent build in the hardcore challenge is definitely very different compared to just a conventional cookie cutter leveling build, because you are going to build different talents dependent on your playstyle and how you're going to be leveling. As a warrior, if you are someone like me who's going to be grinding green mobs, staying clear of abilities that are going to cost large amounts to do large amounts of damage is probably the best way to go, because the mobs aren't going to prove to be all that difficult to kill anyway. And I also found myself picking up unwanted talents, such as Blood Craze, for the minimal amounts of regeneration they provided, because this increased my ability to go from mob to mob without having any downtime. Similarly, if you are going to want to tank dungeons, especially early on, you're probably going to want to pick up Tactical Mastery, as this is going to enable you to be able to charge and then retain your rage when you switch stances. Of course, it's not necessary. You can pull with a thrown weapon, which is actually going to be good practice for when you get to max level, as it is the safer option, but it is an option available to you. If you are watching this with a view to getting information for leveling on the official servers, where you are going to be able to go into dungeons an unlimited amount of time, then you may even wish to consider leveling as protection, although I probably wouldn't advise it. What I'm essentially trying to say with this little ramble is that your talents should be a fluid concept and something that you elect to choose for yourself based on how you are choosing to play. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the plans now that we are 60. So there are two plans in fold. The first being that we are going to respec to Deep Prot, and we are going to become a 5-man dungeon main. I do not have any interest particularly in going into raids, and that is why I'm going Deep Prot as opposed to Fury Prot, as I do personally prefer it for doing 5-man content. And I am also intending on leveling up the next character, of course. I did make a promise to get all 9 classes up to the maximum level in the Hardcore Challenge, and I do intend on doing that. As a result, I intend on leveling a Shaman next, with a view to doing it with one of my first challenges that I accept as a starting achievement of having no totems. So, look, if you're looking forward to that, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. As to the videos that I intend on bringing out, that is actually something I was hoping to get some feedback from yourselves on. I have noticed that the Hardcore Challenge videos in general aren't doing as well as the videos where I did gold making advice. And as a result, I was hoping for some feedback as to whether this is something you guys are actually interested in. And if you are you interested in seeing the Shaman no totem run? Are you interested in a particular different other class? Or are you interested in the max level content on the Warrior? Do let me know. But for now, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Laters.